Hi guys! Now in this video I'm going to talk about wheelchair users at the Walt Disney World Resort. Now in my previous videos I talked about what Disney does for the visually impaired and for the hearing impaired. And now this video is going to be referencing the mobility impaired at Disney World. So in terms of transportation, all of the Disney buses are equipped to handle wheelchairs. You just have to make sure that your wheelchair or the wheelchair that you're using can fit on the bus lift, which is 32 inches by 48 inches. The monorail can accommodate wheelchairs as well. They will have a ramp that they can put on between the platform and the monorail so that wheelchairs can go in and out. And oftentimes the boats can too. I've never seen any situation where they've not been where Disney has had to turn away somebody in a wheelchair, but this does depend on the water levels. So if the boat is really, really high or really, really low, then that might not be a possibility. But like I said, I've never seen that happen. Now, in terms of renting a wheelchair, you can get one off property, and I just recommend you just Google that. And a lot of times the local companies will deliver it to and pick up from your resort, so you don't have to worry about picking it up and dropping it off at the end of your trip. Additionally, you can rent them from Disney from the parks on a first come, first served basis. The ones that you rent in the parks cannot be taken out of the parks though. So you can't take it from one park to another or from one park to the resort. So the way that works is you go to a park and you go and you rent your wheelchair, and then when you're leaving, if you plan on visiting that park or another park that same day, keep your receipt and then you don't have to pay again for the same day. The next day you would have to pay. So if you want to get one of Disney's wheelchairs, they recommend that you get there early because like I said, it's a first come, first served basis, especially if you want to get an ECV, which stands for Electric Convenience Vehicle, because they are even more limited and you have to be 18 if you want to rent an ECV. So you might be asking, if you can't take them from the parks, how does Disney recommend you get from the transportation to the park? And they have complimentary courtesy wheelchairs for that. And that's just a standard wheelchair. It's not electric or anything. And it has a blue seat, a blue back, and a blue flag. And you can use that to get from the park to the loading area, the transportation loading area. But like I said, you cannot take these inside the park, nor can you take them on the Disney transportation. So the cost to rent a wheelchair, just a standard wheelchair at the theme parks, is $12 per day. And the cost to rent an ECV is $50 per day plus a $20 deposit. The cost at Disney Springs for a wheelchair is $12 per day plus a $100 credit card deposit, and an ECV is $50 per day plus a $100 credit card deposit. If you plan on visiting the ESPN Wide World of Sports complex, they have wheelchairs in limited quantities, but they are free for use. They do not have any ECVs. So what happens if you want to use a wheelchair around your resort? Like I said, you can either rent one from an outside company, or they have separate wheelchairs at your resort that you can use just around the resort. You cannot bring them on Disney transportation, and you cannot bring them to the parks. So the cost for that is $315 deposit, and that goes on your guest room account, and you're only charged if you don't return it at the end of your stay. So this is a good option. I've heard a lot of stories of people who somehow injure themselves on their trip, like they twist their ankle or something, and their room is far from the main building or from the bus, the bus stop, and this is a good option for them. So this is just for temporary use, and something to note is this is not guaranteed. So if you want guaranteed wheelchair use, then they recommend that you rent a wheelchair from an outside company. So in terms of riding rides with a wheelchair, so there are some rides where you can stay in your wheelchair and some where you have to transfer from your wheelchair to the ride itself. Oftentimes there are different line areas where you'll go in you won't go in the normal entrance, you'll go in a separate wheelchair entrance, or a separate loading area for guests in wheelchairs or ECVs as well. And there are many times where Disney will slow down like if there's a moving conveyor belt to get on the ride, Disney will slow that down so that guests that have mobility issues can get on. You don't have to worry about like face planting or anything like that. Like they'll slow it down to help you out. But yeah, for that you just have to talk to the cast member at the front of the ride or attraction, I should say, to see where you are supposed to go, if you're supposed to go in the regular line or if they have a separate wheelchair line. Now, in terms of their hotel rooms, Disney does have several wheelchair accessible hotel rooms throughout the resort at all of their hotels. You can request a room that is wheelchair accessible with a roll-in shower or with the tub, depending on your mobility issues. In wheelchair accessible, you're not going to have to go upstairs. I know the value moderate resorts specifically, they're in separate outer buildings and they're 2 stories tall, so they don't have, they have stairs, but they don't have an elevator. So I guess I don't want to say all buildings because I'm sure there's some, but they'll make sure if you request a wheelchair accessible room that you will not be on the 2nd floor where there is no elevator. So they'll make sure you're on the 1st floor. And like I said, you can request a roll-in shower, or if that part isn't an issue for you, you can also request a bathtub. So these are the different things that Disney can do to help accommodate you if you have mobility issues. They're very, very accommodating. You see a lot of people in wheelchairs at ECVs at Disney, so certainly don't let that stop you. You can still have a great time. I hope you found this helpful, and thanks for watching. Bye, guys.